All right, everyone, well, thank you for coming to tonight's meeting. My name's Erwin. I'm the executive director here at Milks. And, kind of before we get started and do some introduction, I just wanted to set some standards here. I can already see some feisty faces, so feel free to swear as needed. Just have a good discussion, and at the end of the day, I just want you guys to all be very respectful of each other's opinions. So, don't bash on what somebody else has to say. You guys are all here for a reason, and this is a great leadership team. But enough for me. We can just kind of kick it off.
All right, so my name is Callie Michael. I'm the volunteer manager here at Milks.
My name is Laura Wietrich, and I am the social media manager here.
My name is Sarah Neal, and I am the team leader.
And I am Mary Duplanche, and I'm the director of education.
Great. So, as you guys have heard, I've kind of rolled out a plan that's infamous, and people aren't very happy about what's going on. Basically, I want to do background checks and ethics training just to kind of build more reputation and prestige to the firm. And basically 30% of our organization wants to leave, and there's a lot of tenured people that want to leave, which is not good. And some of the things I want to talk about is how we're going to process these background checks, organize a meeting with the firm afterwards, so not just us five here, we actually talk with everyone here, everyone that takes place in the volunteering, facilitating discussions on our background checks and ethics training, how exactly are we going to go about doing these, who's paying for them, et cetera, et cetera. And then analyzing other people that do them. I feel like there's not much analyzing that needs to be done, truly. I know a lot of people to even get any sort of basic job, you have to complete a background check. So that's kind of the idea I have behind it, and kind of bringing that towards volunteering. But I would love to just kind of hear your guys' initial thoughts and what you sort of think about this topic.
So first off, it's kind of a sensitive subject for me because I need the volunteers for all of my programs here. So whenever they're not happy, it's not good for me because I can't lose my volunteers here. So the background checks right now are not the best idea right now because they need to be stress-free and engaging as possible, because whenever they're not happy, then that upsets the senior citizens here, and then that just messes with the whole system that we have. So my people, I need them every day.
Okay.
And just bouncing off of Callie, I mean, I've known you for how many years now? I can't even remember. And I love it here. I do. I think what's going on is a sense of invalidation amongst our volunteers, myself included. I respect the reasoning that you have behind this, but I mean, I personally just value traditions, and I consider a handshake as a contract of good faith, so that's just where I stand.
Yeah, and not even that, because these volunteers, they're your family. You work with them, you've been here for so long, you hate to see them go because you understand their reasoning and why they don't.
Exactly, it breaks my heart.
Definitely. So that's a great first point to bring up. So I have down, we want to keep our volunteers. We don't want to get rid of them. So, I mean, that's one of my goals too. Like I said earlier, anybody that's tenured, they've been here for a long time, there's no reason for them to leave. So whatever we can do to accommodate and make this less rigorous is something I would prefer. But yeah.
I would like to talk about the exposure. So, excuse me. So I know we have a problem. We don't want to lose our volunteers. They make up what we're doing here. So in the past year, because I've been helping with social media around here, I've actually increased our exposure. So I understand if our volunteers do go down, but because I've increased our exposure, then I think we can actually get some more people from the other age groups.
Definitely. And I think one thing I want to say on exposure is, as these new generations come in, that's kind of my idea behind the targeting. Obviously keeping the people that have been here for a long time, but at the end of the day, background checks isn't something that's always been around for a long time, right? But in today's day and age, it's really consistent and happens all the time across even the smallest job, right? So this new generation, age of 16 to 25, which is our smallest amount of exposure, that's something we need to grow. And I think having something like this in place is standard across, the United States, and that's something they would, easily accept.
Yeah. So the problem I sort of have with this is having the younger generation come in. Mary's probably gonna have a stressful time teaching them and educating them with helping senior citizens because they're not used to being around old people, and especially working them and teaching with them. So I think she's gonna have to go into make up new educational content to teach them, and not only that, but the hours might fluctuate with them because they have school
Right.
Most most of the day, so
Yeah.
that might be a little difficult with the scheduling, but
Okay. I mean, what do you think about that?
I think for me, I understand that we really want to keep the trust of the volunteers. I also think that's important. But more than that, my number one priority is the safety of our clients, especially since our clients are elderly people. They're a little bit more vulnerable, not as able to defend themselves if something were to happen. And I don't want us to be liable for something to happen with one of the volunteers if we don't go through with the background checks.
Definitely, and I think that's kind of my reasoning behind it. It's why we want these background checks and the reason we want to put them in place. But at the end of the day, we're growing, right? We have a volunteer base that's been around for a very long time. However, we don't necessarily have the funds. So maybe we can talk a little bit. We can talk about the budget after, but why don't we talk about what would happen if they left or something?
Okay, so I actually have another graphic. Yes, thank you. So in prior years, our volunteers have been about the same because they've been here for so long. Since I've been here last year, we've actually increased by 23 to about 30 volunteers. I understand that our number of volunteers can go down, but before when I talk about exposure, I think we'll still be able to bring that back up after maybe a year or two after we put in these different precautions with the background checks. But I think we may lose a few people. I understand we don't want to lose them, but if they have trouble doing the background check, then I don't know if we would want those kind of people here today, if you get what I mean.
I agree with that, and I think that in the bigger picture, the issue of having to find a few extra volunteers is not as big of an issue as if something were to happen dealing with that kind of an issue and being liable for it.
Definitely, and Sarah knows this. Like, we do
Yeah.
great things here, right? So there's no
Definitely,
reason we
yes.
shouldn't have a precaution in place that can cause something so great to shut down,
And
right?
I think we should, make it clear to the volunteers that the reason why we're running the background checks is not because we don't trust them or think that they're trustworthy to deal with our clients. The reason is that we just want to have that peace of mind that the volunteers that we have don't have any kind of criminal background or any
Yeah.
red flags.
Absolutely, and I think that's when facilitating a discussion with everybody that's here is going to be really important. But I know I hit the budget a little bit. Callie, do you have anything ready for that?
yeah, so per year I have $4,000, and then for background checks, they're $20 per person, and right now we have 30 volunteers, so that's taking $600 out of the budget that I'm using for the senior citizens. So that's a very large number. And then for the ethics training, that's $100 per person. So if I sent all 30 through that training, then I couldn't do it. So I kind of came up with the idea that if Sarah and I go and do the ethics training together, since the volunteers are very comfortable with us, that we could do the training and then train the volunteers ourselves. So total, if we did that, then we'd have $64 for all year for each senior citizen. So that is hurting my budget a lot because, that's why the senior citizens are here, is for the programs. And if they can't get what they need out of the programs because I don't have the funding, then senior citizens aren't gonna come and do our programs.
If you would like me to, I can help you and I can put some things out on social media if you want to do a few fundraisers or add more to give you more money for everybody, because I understand you need that budget.
Yeah, so right now your social media, we're off the chain with social media. So I think that with our strong community here, that could possibly help, and that would really probably solve the solution with the background checks.
Okay, sweet.
Definitely, and so, okay, I like where we're headed, because it makes sense that the budget's not capable of this. You guys I think you guys need to go through the ethics training yourself, right? That way you're able to lead it, and then you guys can do the ethics training, everybody still goes through background checks, but a big thing is, who are we gonna process these through? So that's something we can't comfortably do, so I recommend we do it through a third party. Someone where they go take the background check, or they submit it somewhere, and, it kind of comes back, and the results come back to us. What do you guys think about that?
I think that's a good idea.
That's good.
Yeah, because the volunteers, they're comfortable with us, but if you were to give them the background check, they might think that you might not give them the results that they wanted. So I think with a third party, then they know the results are right, and hopefully going in, they know what their results should be.
Definitely. And I'm sorry, Lisa.
No, I was agreeing.
Sarah, and when we talk about like retention, right? You're on hands, you're on the job. I'm hearing 30%. What do you actually think? You know, if we communicated this effectively, how much do you think, like how many volunteers would we actually lose? Who would actually stay?
Well, I think, as we've all talked about, it's a process, and it's all about how we execute the process. I think that this background check thing, I'm trying to get more comfortable with this. I do have a proposal regarding the background checks. How would you guys feel if you guys were to maybe cover the cost of that for us?
What do you guys think?
I think we could do that.
Yeah,
I think through more fundraising,
Yeah.
that we will be able to have enough in our budget to carry out the background checks through our company and not have the volunteers pay themselves.
I think that would help
I think that
everyone.
would, I think that would really help them, like, especially those that are thinking of just dropping the program altogether, like, at least offering that would kind of give them a little bit more reason to stay.
Exactly.
Exactly, and I think that's something maybe, I don't know, you guys think about this. So obviously, you can take care of the social media, you can, gain the exposure we need, but maybe that's something we do now where we cover them now. But I don't know if it's realistic for us, depending on how fast we grow, to always cover in the future. We just go, hey guys, we're issuing the new phase, and since you guys have been here, we'll cover your background checks, but this is gonna be something standard from here on out. So anybody that gets onboarded or joins later on, we have them go through the standard background check that they would pay for.
And that's okay with me. I don't know these new people.
Yeah.
I just know the ones that are here and who have been here for
I think
years.
that's a
Yes.
Exactly.
fair
I
decision.
agree.
And I think it'd be a disservice to the people that have been volunteering for so long to charge them an X amount of dollars for for a simple background check, just to have them like stay on the job. So we talked about keeping the volunteers. I think we're gonna be able to combat bringing in too many young people, kind of figuring out that balance, and we've kind of talked about the safety. So do we kind of like the idea of holding on to background checks, covering them for now, rolling that out forward, and then you two will go through an ethics training as soon as possible, and then we can kind of conduct that, in a timely manner.
Yeah, I
Sounds
definitely
okay.
think that works. I think the volunteers will be happy with that decision.
Right, and obviously this isn't something we can roll out right away. So, I think one of the last things I want to talk about is retention, because that's the reason why we're sitting here today. We're scared about losing some of our most tenured people. So, I think we can put something together for a meeting and talk about this at a later date. But what are you guys thinking in terms of time frame? Like, when do you guys want to have this meeting with them, where we know our facts, right? Because we have kind of a solidified plan here, but where we know what it's going to cost exactly, what the plan is, how we're going to orchestrate it. When do you guys want to kind of meet with them?
So I actually planned a program this weekend. So I'm thinking after that program that we can host it. So then I for sure know that I will have my volunteers this weekend, and then after that, then I'll tell them and I'll go over all of this, and then Sarah and I will do the ethics training as soon as possible, and then present that to them.
Okay, cool. So then maybe we say, you go through what you're doing. In 2 weeks, we do a meeting with everybody, all 30 and us. And then from there, you roll out the ethics training. I think that would make a lot of sense. And then from there, we give them, a span of 7 to 12 to 14 days to get their background checks in. If they don't get them in by that time, unfortunately, they might have to cover or something. But I feel like that's ample amount of time to push them through a third party and kind of have that going. But yeah, I don't know, that's kind of how I see it. My biggest thing is like, you've been very committed, you've been here longer than me, so I respect that. And you're on hands, you're doing the job out there. It's, at the end of the day, you guys can really boost this morale, right? You guys can tell them it's gonna be okay, like we're putting a plan in place. At the end of the day, like I'm the new guy, I haven't been here for that long. I don't want it to seem like I hate them and I don't respect what they're doing here. And I think that's something that can come from you guys, and that's something we can really portray well in a meeting with everyone there. But, I feel like we've kind of come to agreement. Is there anything else you kind of want to talk about? Maybe one last small point that we might be missing out on?
I think it all sounds good.
All sounds
I
good?
agree.
Cool, so we're looking at a good timeline then. So in about 2 weeks, we kind of roll everything out, and afterwards, I'd say within a month, we should be good and have a full volunteer force that's had background checks done and ethics training's been completed.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Awesome, thank you.